Hello there, my name is Louis Wieland, and for the last 30 years I've published the official relocation guides on Atlanta that are distributed by the First Multiple Listing Service of Atlanta. That happens to be the third largest multiple listing service in the United States, with over 65,000 agents tuning into that website regularly for information essential to doing their work. They are now FMLS, or First Multiple Listing Service, has now expanded to Tennessee, Alabama, and Florida, and other markets. In fact, Denver is in sight. In fact, the whole state of Colorado, I believe. So it's growing fast, and the magazines that I publish are called Community Profiles. They are on the First Multiple Listing Service website for access by realtors. We send them out to all the realtors periodically, who in turn forward them to agents to provide them with information for their clients about the city. There are several different publications, one for Atlanta, one for North Fulton, Cobb, and Gwinnett, with information about the counties and the communities and points of interest, and anything of interest to potential home buyers or businesses relocating to the area. I'm also a commercial realtor with KW Commercial, and my area of focus is multifamily and land. If I can help you with any of your real estate needs, my email is louwieland@kw.com. So every week or so, we interview community leaders, people who are contributing to the well-being of our metro area, and it's our great pleasure to welcome back to the show the mayor of Alpharetta, Jim Gilvin, who has been on this show before, but it's been a while and we'd like to catch up on. Welcome back to the show, Jim. Thank you for all you do to contribute to the well-being of our community and, of course, to your great city. Nice to have you back. Thanks for taking time with us.
My pleasure, Lou. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, your city is amazing. I live adjacent next door in Roswell, but the population of Alpharetta is about 65,000, and the average price of a home in Alpharetta is not inexpensive, is not reasonable. It's not for your everyday guy. It's see, I had the figure. I think it's almost $600,000. It's actually 673 median and over 800 for average. And the price, actually, in the last year, the price is up 14% for median and 18% average, just in the last 3 years. So that contrasts, by the way, with an average increase of 8% for the metro area. And by the way, overall home closings are down 29% this year over year, and the average home price in the metro area is $489. So the average for Alpharetta is almost twice the average home price for the metro area. It is an affluent area by any definition. Jim, how would you profile the city just succinctly in terms of overall kind of profile of the great city of Alpharetta?
Well, I think in general, the city of Alpharetta has become one of the best places in the nation to raise a family and build a business. I think that's what has driven the economy in our local market over the past 10 years. Over the last 10 years, as you look around the United States at technology centers, Alpharetta has one of the highest concentration of tech workers in the nation, compared to some in Silicon Valley, some in the Pacific Northwest. We have a huge amount of tech workers from around the world who relocated to the United States. And Alpharetta has grown from a small, quiet little suburban town that had, tremendous office space and office parks and a great public school environment into a world-class city now where major corporations are bringing in employees from around the world. We actually have a very diverse community. About 25% of our population was not born in the United States of America. They're from all over the world, because the one thing that is in demand is tech workers, regardless of where you're from, what your background is. We have a highly educated workforce. We have a community that is fairly affluent because they've been successful in such a high concentration of tech workers that the average household income is over $100,000 a household. And that has driven some of the real estate costs that you were going over earlier.
Well, it's a beautiful city, and I've watched it grow, and I've watched you build the downtown area. And give us a quick, brief history of the growth of the downtown area over the last 5 or 8 years.
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, Alpharetta grew from a very small, mostly rural city or town, even actually in the 1970s and 1980s. Population was only about 3,000 people in 1980. And early in the 80s, companies from around the world like EDS with Ross Perot and other major tech companies like AT&T realized that Atlanta was a growing and thriving market, and that there was really cheap land north of Atlanta in the area called Alpharetta. And so they began running fiber optic cables in this area. And we now have one of the most dense fiber optic networks in the nation, in which that has provided a robust environment for data centers. And of course, that creates a great environment for tech companies. We have over 900 technology companies in the city of Alpharetta right now, with over 4,200 registered businesses in the city. Population, like you mentioned earlier, is over 65,000. And that's just our nighttime population. Because of our commercial centers like Avalon and retail centers like downtown Alpharetta, we attract between 40 to 50,000 people a day into our 20 million square feet of Class A office spaces. And also the retail establishments and the hospitality industry is one of the most vibrant in the state, with over 30 hotels in Alpharetta at this point. So it's a very thriving community with a great economic outlook.
The city is 23 square miles, according to the information that I gather, and
I think it may be a little closer to 27 square miles, but
okay, so it's a nice sized city. It's compared to most cities around, in the metro area. It's a very big city in terms of square miles.
No, not at all. And, there's good and bad in that. But one of the great things about it is because Alpharetta was in a rural environment for so long, we've got tremendous public spaces, as you're well aware. Back before there was a Beltline in Atlanta, the city of Alpharetta was already building our Greenway, because we had Big Creek that ran from north to south, from Forsyth County line all the way down to Roswell. And that's about 9.5, 10 miles of trails that were built in the late 90s and early 2000s that allow people to get out in a green space environment with a bridge and creeks and things like that, and just cycle and run and jog. And it's just a tremendous space and asset. And we've begun expanding upon that whole network by expanding the connections of the Greenway, which is very rural along the creek floodplains, and connecting those office spaces and connecting to Avalon and downtown Alpharetta using the Alpha Loop, which was another spur that we began about 6 or 7 years ago.
Well, you've touched on a lot of things that we would like to talk about. What is the newest Alpharetta section from Old Milton there? What is the status of that one? Is that under construction?
I assume you're talking about the expansion of the Alpha Loop. So the Alpha Loop was originally created as a multi-purpose trail, just like the Greenway, or for those who are more familiar with the Beltline, a similar trail with about 12 feet wide, multi-purpose, where bikes and pedestrians can walk and connect it. It was originally created to get from City Center, which is our downtown mixed-use revival project, to Avalon, which is approximately 1 mile. And so we connected those with a great green space trail. And then after we completed that first leg between Avalon and City Center, we began expanding parallel to Haynesbridge Road in Alpharetta, because we have a tremendous density of office parks along that corridor, and it leads back over towards Georgia 400. So we decided that the next loop should be to bring it from City Center and expand it along Haynesbridge, along the creek there. So it's also a green space trail. It's not an urban trail. And that'll take us up to the corridor of Georgia 400, with plans to eventually expand on what we call the Alpha Link to the North Point corridor and the Greenway.
So, how long is that altogether, and how many miles are of?
So much of the Alpha Loop is still under construction. We completed the first mile, and I would say probably 2/3 to 3/4 of the next mile and a half has already been completed. I would anticipate we'll have a ribbon cutting on the entire corridor, at least for this phase, probably in February or March. Well, the goal for this segment is to get from City Center in downtown Alpharetta to Georgia 400 at the North Winds project. There we have 2 mixed-use developments that are on that corridor that are still being built. We already have the North Winds project, which was built. But on the south side of Haynesbridge Road, we have 2 projects that are, one is called The Gathering on Haynesbridge Road, which is mostly residential with a small commercial component. And then we have the Lakeview development, which is far larger, includes much more residential, it includes retail, it also has a much larger office component. So once we connect all of those, then we'll begin the next stretch, which we call the Alpha Link.
So altogether, about what, 3 miles, maybe just under 3 miles by the time it's all completed, or?
Well, I don't know that it'll ever be completed, because we have designs for bringing it all the way from down at the Georgia 400 corridor back up into town. And so we've got designs for expanding for miles and miles. I would say probably at some point in the future, we would have up to 12 miles of actual trails in the city of Alpharetta, not including the Greenway, which is already about, I would say, 9 to 10 miles. So probably eventually, when it does get completed, if it ever is completed and they don't continue to expand connections, probably about 20 miles total eventually.
Well, almost a marathon. You could almost run a marathon on it by the time it's all finished at 26 miles.
Absolutely. And if it's a loop, you could absolutely do it, because you just go and loop another half time.
You mentioned a reference to office space. What is the status of office space? It's in Alpharetta. It's not that great right now in most parts of the United States for a variety of reasons. What is the status on that segment of your business at this stage?
Sure. Well, you're right. I mean, a lot of things change with COVID and more flexibility and work from home, things like that. So far, Alpharetta has been very fortunate as far as our occupancy rates, and our cost per square foot are staying fairly strong. What we found is that, fortunately, what Alpharetta has been doing over the last 10, 15 years is exactly what the new markets are demanding, what new employers and what their employees are expecting. And so when we began redoing the City Center project, for example, 10, 12 years ago, downtown was just an old, wasn't a very vibrant downtown, I'll say. There wasn't a lot of commercial activity. Most of it was in the office parks and retail centers like North Point Mall and Avalon, things like that. But when we started that project, we created one of the most significant downtown historic flavored, I'll say, because it's not really, most of the buildings are newer, most of what we created downtown, but it has that feel of a historic small downtown, the traditional environment, I would say, for a lot of people. And so by creating those mixed use environments, we found that that's what people want. They want to be able to go to an office if they're working in person, and they want to be able to walk to a restaurant or go shopping when they get off work or go have a beer with the rest of their fellow employees and things like that. And so we've been working on that for the last decade, which helps keep us on the most wanted list for a lot of major employers, especially as you look around what's happened since COVID. So many communities that used to be competitors with Alpharetta have failed to just do the basic services, keeping their businesses, keeping their people safe, providing great public education, having great school systems. We've continued to pay a lot of attention to the basics, to invest in our infrastructure, to invest in those amenities that make this a place people want to be, and that makes it a place that businesses want to be. So we're really doing really well as far as occupancy rates compared to most of the Atlanta market or around the country. But still, we've got some of the older office parks that are mostly surface parking, don't necessarily have the same caliber of amenities. And those are some of the developments that we're looking at now in trying to decide, okay, what can the city do to incentivize creation of more amenities? And for example, the two mixed-use developments I mentioned earlier, Lakeview, that's a big project. And one of the reasons we were so supportive of that project on Haynesbridge Road is because it provides those amenities and the type of environment that will continue to attract employers and employees to the Northwinds office park, which has several million square feet of Class A office space there. We've got also Continuum up on the Windward Parkway. Just this week, we had the Urban Land Institute come in and make recommendations after we had been working with them for several months. They've got a talented group of creative people. And Windward is an office park that really was the most desirable in Alpharetta for quite some time, and still has 8 of our 10 largest employers in that quarter. I believe there's about 7 or 8 million square feet of office space there. Major employers like LexisNexis, ADP, Global Payments, Fiserv. And so these are major employers who have offices around the world, and they still find it attractive there. But some of the office components don't have the amenities that the others have access to. And so we worked with the Urban Land Institute to come up with some creative ideas of how we can even make those areas more attractive. And going back to retrofit some of these other office parks with amenities and mixes of uses, retail, residential, and things like that, to kind of evolve all of our office parks into the ones that 21st century tenants want and employees want, not just the 20th century office parks that originally built the foundation of our community.
So North Point Mall, a lot of people are talking about North Point Mall and some plans that thinking and planning, et cetera. What's the latest update on plans and thinking for progress and development, et cetera, for that facility?
Well, North Point is really our prime opportunity for redevelopment. The city of Alpharetta has been around since the 1850s and has been through different iterations, mostly farmland and a huge technology office park, suburban environment. But things have changed, and North Point Mall is on about 80 acres, I believe it is total, And it was the commercial center of all of North Fulton for decades. But as things have changed over the last few years with the development of Avalon and other similar mixed-use developments around North Atlanta Metro, North Point Mall just kind of became dated, as many large, typical regional malls in most of the United States have come up against challenges from newer, more sexy, vibrant areas with mixed-use components. And so we've been working with the property owners. Property owners now is New York Life. They've owned the property for several years now, and we've been working very closely with them on some exciting options. We are working currently. We've been talking to some of the owners and a development team that has been working with New York Life on potential sports-oriented mixed-use developments, as we discussed at the Rotary Club meeting I saw you at last week, or a couple of weeks ago, I guess it was now. The Truist Park over at the Battery in Cobb County has kind of set a bar for what can be done in a mixed-use environment, including entertainment venues and a sport component. Truist Park, of course, has the Atlanta Braves, and there's opportunities for other sports leagues, other sports components, and other entertainment venues that would fit really well in the footprint of what we have at North Point Mall. And we've got some really interesting proposals coming forward. Nothing, has been submitted yet, but I think we've got the right kind of people having the right kind of discussions about how you create a really vibrant, amenitized community that may have a large sports component and includes some entertainment options, as well as residential in an area where office would thrive. So we're excited about that. North Point is really unique in North Metro Atlanta because not only does it have tremendous transportation corridors, great access, 2 exits on Georgia 400, Georgia Department of Transportation is expanding the flex lanes and the toll lanes, which will even up the traffic flows and speed commuters once they get that project finished. And they've also got bus rapid transit. So we would have MARTA bus rapid transit that would get you from North Point to North Springs MARTA station in probably 6 to 7 minutes. So there's a lot going on over there, and we're excited about the future.
It's not a secret that you're looking at an NHL team over there, and Alpharetta does already have a nice skating rink and a lot of people in Alpharetta do play hockey. And there's anything that you could tell me that we could, just between you and me, that we won't mention to anybody?
Just between you and me and the camera? No, it's no secret that there's been rumors going around for probably close to 2 years now that, there's people that would like to bring an NHL hockey team here. And, that's exciting. It's cool to think that Atlanta could once again have a hockey team, a professional NHL hockey team. That's not something that we can control, the city of Alpharetta. That decision has to be made by the NHL executives, and they'll do their timeline when it's good for their business model. But what we are doing is trying to create an environment where if Atlanta gets a hockey team, we think we'd be the best place for it to be.
Do you have the same amount of space over there as the Braves have at the Battery, or what is the comparison in size?
I couldn't say acreage-wise. I would say it's probably pretty close if you're just going by the North Point Mall. But, the great thing about the North Point Mall corridor is it's not just the mall. As you well know, you've been through that area. There's over 800 acres between Mansell Road on the south side of Alpharetta on Georgia 400 and Haynes Bridge Road on the north end of the North Point development. So there's a tremendous retail component already there. They've got hotels, they've got the amphitheater, you've got Topgolf. The whole corridor could become something really extraordinary. Plus, you've got the Greenway right there. It'd be connected to the Loop. The amenities in that area are tremendous. So I don't know the acreage of Truist. I go there. I've got season tickets for the Braves. And I would say that if you took the whole corridor of North Point, is probably larger than what they have there at the Battery. But the parcel that the Battery is on is probably similar to North Point, the mall itself.
To mention something that's near and dear to my heart, which is plenty of good golf, which a lot
Absolutely.
of hockey players do love golf.
I'll take your word for it. I don't know that many professional hockey players.
But yeah, you have a lot of, good grief. You have lots of good country clubs and golf clubs and even public courses over there. So
Absolutely.
It's a huge attraction, in my opinion. You also have 6 high schools, which is one of the key reasons people pick up a community is because of the quality of the education. And really all 6 high schools are magnificent in terms of the students, the graduating percentage who go to college, et cetera, is very high. Highest.
Absolutely. I was a real estate agent before I got into politics. And one of the reasons I got into politics is because as I was showing clients around, bringing people into Alpharetta and showing houses and things like that, I'd always ask them, is any good real estate agent? What brings you to the Alpharetta? And generally, they relocated to the Atlanta metro area because of a job transfer or promotion, something along those lines. But they chose Alpharetta because of the schools. Most of the people that live in Alpharetta now could afford to live pretty much anywhere in the metro Atlanta area. But they chose Alpharetta because it has that really great balance of being a great place to raise a family and do business. And the big component of that is the great schools. We have top-notch schools, some of the highest rated in the nation. If you've never been to the Innovation Academy in downtown Alpharetta, you should do a show just on it. It's amazing. I mean, it's a magnet school, so students from around the county apply and can go. But these are some of the most brilliant young people I've ever met.
North Fulton Science Academy is also right up there. That's amazing.
We have 3 charter schools. Yes, we've got Fulton Science Academy, and you've got Alpharetta High School, Milton High School, Cambridge High School. We've got tremendous schools up here, and that's once again, you talk about the cost of housing up here. When people look around Metro Atlanta area and try to decide where they want their family to settle, where their schools are going to be good, sometimes they're willing to pay more because they know they won't have to pay a private school tuition.
$5,000 a year. That's almost the same as a college tuition. So
and
it's expensive.
In Atlanta, they'd be even higher.
So it's amazing. But you mentioned that there were 800 acres, I believe, that could potentially be used by a potential hockey team franchise. How much other vacant office space or space just generally is available? And what are some of your thoughts about how to use that space?
I wouldn't say we have a lot of vacant space. And the 800 acres is for that whole corridor. So I don't know that one developer would want the whole corridor, but when you're talking about creating a vibrant sector right in that whole corridor, I mean, what we have done over the years, once again, that whole corridor between Mansell and Haynesbridge Road, the city almost 10 years ago worked with the Atlanta Regional Commission for a Livable Communities Initiative, LCI, because we had a vision of, okay, this is a huge retail corridor, but retail's changing. And one of the great things is a lot of that area is surface parking. I say it's a great thing because that gives opportunities. That's land that was so cheap in 1980 that they just paved over it and had a lot of surface parking. But if you come with a creative proposal, you can find ways to take that land that used to be cheap and now is very expensive and turn that into something that's revenue producing, whether it's residential or retail or mixed use. And so we have a lot of acreage there that's now asphalt, and our LCI has guidelines that are incentivizing turning it into what we call a bio district, because we're trying eco district. We've got incentives for breaking up asphalt, creating green spaces, building water reclamation, parks, and things like that. And trying to make it an area where instead of just a lot of asphalt with retail in the middle of it, and activating those spaces that are really underutilized, considering how much that land's worth now. I mean, multifamily is a healthy component of any city. The city of Alpharetta, going back to what I was saying, our long-term goals are to remain and continue to be a great balance between a great place to live, raise a family, and build a business. And so we have set a UDC template, our future land use plans and things like that, to continue to evolve in a way that retains that balance. We're not looking to become the next Sandy Springs or the next Buckhead. That's not what people came here for. If they wanted to live in Buckhead, most people here would. But what we're trying to do is have a component of residential, whether it's multifamily or single family detached, that's got a good balance and attracts everybody. So we actually do have a target in our UDC that we try to retain a balance of at least 32, no more than 32% apartments or rentals. And that's a statistic we use from the census data. And we compare, okay, that includes all of our residential. We just would like to keep it at around a 68 to 32% owner occupied to rental properties.
What is the kind of paradigm on hotels and restaurants, which are key points of attraction to people moving here and bringing in for business and pleasure?
Well, I mean, we've got 30 hotels. I think we've gained 5 over the last 5 years, even through COVID. So we've got to, because we've created an environment that's so attractive to business travelers and to casual, vacationers or people just trying to get away for a weekend. We've got a huge hospitality environment here. We've got, actually, I remember a couple of years ago, we were working on some of the sales tax distributions with Fulton County and the other cities in the metro Atlanta, Fulton County area. And when they broke down the economies in each of those cities, Atlanta was by far the largest. Alpharetta was actually the second largest economic driver, even ahead of Sandy Springs, which surprised me a little bit. And a lot of that was because of our hospitality industry.
So you have some beautiful restaurants, and it seems like there are new restaurants popping up all the time, and really nice restaurants too. A wide variety of price ranges and cuisines.
Yeah, we're real proud of it. We just had our Alpharetta restaurant week a couple of weeks ago. It was quite a smashing success.
And then just lastly, I know you're limited for time. We have asked for about 30 minutes, and we're about at the end of our allotment here. But what are some of the holiday events coming up that by the city that you'll have that people might be interested in seeing?
Oh, well, we're going to have a whole score of events over the next few weeks. This weekend, we're actually going to have 3 Christmas tree lightings. We'll have one at the Hamilton Hotel downtown Alpharetta. The city has our Christmas tree lighting this Saturday evening. And Avalon will have their own Christmas tree lighting this weekend. So we've got a ton of events. We also have a Christmas market that's coming up. If anyone is interested in finding out what all's going on in Alpharetta, just go to awesomealpharetta.com. awesomealpharetta.com, and they have an extensive list of all the events going on, all the restaurants that are available, any hotel opportunities, anything you need to know about the city of Alpharetta and what's happening here, you can find it on awesomealpharetta.com.
That's great. Well, thanks, Jim. Appreciate your taking time to come on the show again, and we'll be checking back, hopefully, if you can give us some more time from time to time, keep us abreast of developments, and certainly we're very interested in that success. But, for the hockey league, I love hockey. My son started to skate when he could walk practically on 2 blades, played for a long time. I love hockey, but anyway, hopefully we can see some more hockey coming here. That'd be extremely cool.
Keep your fingers crossed,
Yes,
man.
we certainly will. Thank you very much, Jim. It was a pleasure to have you. And thank you so much for your outstanding service that you provide in leadership of our city and all the time that you allocate to the well-being of the city. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lou. I enjoy it, man. It's good to talk to you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.